Hey, good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome to the Volquest Mailbag Podcast, presented by our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions. They've been local and trusted since 1999. These summer storms, they're nothing to be played with. And if you have a need for a little renovation, if you have the need for some home repair, give them a call today for a free estimate. That's at 865-524-5888, or visit them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. Awesome prices here with us. Rob Lewis, Brent Hubbs. I am Eric Cain. We got a lot of questions to get into, and we'll start with Nike_Vol. Favorite storyline, memory of the 2024 National Championship team. AP, me and Brent have kind of gone back and forth, and we've said there's so many different storylines for this team, but how would you answer that question?
I was not talking about this the other night. I think it's everything. Like, I don't think you can just pinpoint one thing. I mean, it's this team's, they lose Chase Burns. All of a sudden, A.J. Russell misses most of the season. Here comes out of nowhere Xander Sechrist, who looked like, they talked about him being a big fan of Tom Glavine. He looked like Tom Glavine or Steve Avery in 1991, either one. Eric, do you know who Steve Avery is?
Yes, he was the fourth of the big
I didn't know
three.
he pitched against Kirby Puckett.
He pitched to Kirby Puckett, so we don't know. You had the question.
Wow.
He
was the forgotten man. He was the forgotten man after the big three.
Welcome back home, Eric Cain. Welcome back, buddy. You've been missed.
That's right. We let you have yesterday to relax. Now the punching bag.
Relaxing was yesterday, yes.
Plus, hey, man, after all the love the GQ gave you with all those threads about Eric loved the coverage, Eric's
nice.
Eric's great, we all agreed we got to knock you back down this time.
Well, that's not the. I was going to wait to bring this up, but Hub's probably going to mention it. Eric's been married with 18 months. Carissa already asked if Hubs could send him back to Nebraska. Like, what would it call? What would she have to do? That was the best 12 days she's had in a long time.
But to answer the question, just lots of different storylines. For me, it's Sechrist. I think what he did down the stretch was fantastic. Now, favorite moment was Kirby coming in from the bullpen the other night. It's cool as the Dreiling home run and his play in Omaha. Knowing what Kirby's meant to the community, knowing what Kirby's meant to the team, doing all the little things not pertaining to between the white lines. I thought the drone shot, following him in from the bullpen, the hair kind of waving in the wind, just how he takes the mound from the bullpen. That was a cool moment for me, just because you knew it was the last time. He knew it was the last time, and then the strikeout with just that nasty cutter, and just kind of the fire he showed.
Yeah, the emotion from him, who's just Mr. Cool, calm, and I've got this. He just let it go.
Part two of the favorite moment would be the smile after the balk call with Aaron Combs. I thought that was fantastic, and I've loved the way that kid's pitched all year. Like, I think he's got nasty stuff. I just kind of love his look and just kind of how he, presents himself. And so there's going to be some characters on this team that will be missed. Tennessee's going to have to replace a ton, especially, in the field. Not as much in the pitching staff, but in the field, because they do have some nice arms coming back. But it'll be a totally different looking group when they take to the field this fall for that scrimmage that you'll be out in Jackson.
Rob, what you got? What was one of your favorite memories?
Man, it's recency bias, I'm sure, but the favorite memories just got to be, opening night in Omaha, against Florida State. But that's the favorite memory for me. But that's also, to me, just kind of a microcosm of what this team was about. Like, I know, late in that game against Florida State, Hubbard was probably thinking, they've got it. But everybody else is like, there's no chance. There's no chance. and they just come through. But it wasn't incredible for them to come through. It was incredible, for most teams to come through. But for this team, it wasn't out of character. And for me, that's the biggest takeaway. They just did stuff like that all the time. That's an extreme example, but it was, to me, again, it wasn't out of character for them to do something crazy like that late when even that was, this team, but even for the past couple of years, that's been the MO for this program. The Clemson game, a few years ago, or the drama at Southern Miss, to get out of that regional. I mean, so it just wasn't unthinkable that they would do what they did against Florida State. But to me, that's the MO of this team, that they would just never say die, and a comeback like that, in the 11th hour was just not impossible. I mean, it was never too late.
I did think they missed one golden opportunity, however. I thought at the celebration they should have done a mic check and used Blake Burke and had him walk up there and go, check, check, check swing, and just walk off. I thought people would have died. I thought that was the one missed opportunity out of everything.
I mean, for me, for this team, it's Xander Seacrest. I mean, I don't know about all the moments. I mean, there were a lot of moments along the way, but for me, the storyline is Xander Seacrest. Nobody had him on the bingo card, being Tennessee's ace in the postseason. And Drew Beam was terrific. He was terrific in Omaha, but the best pitcher for Tennessee from the start of the postseason through the entire postseason was Xander Seacrest. And his teammates wanted him to have the ball. And he delivered, and he delivered on the biggest stage and the biggest moments. And for me, a guy who's considered a journeyman by a lot of people because he was a midweek guy. I don't know if he becomes the Sunday guy throughout the season. If Russell's healthy, I don't know how they handle Sundays if Russell's your Friday night starter. But when Seacrest got the opportunity, he took advantage of it. They turned him loose, let him be himself, as Frank Anderson said to you, Eric, post game, and he was really, really good, and his team had tons of confidence in him. To me, he's the biggest storyline, and to me, he's the reason Tennessee's holding the trophy. There's a lot of parts to that, but there's no bigger part than Xander Seacrest.
Fitting that he ends his Tennessee career the way that he did. He's signing babies in a parade. I think that's hilarious from Xander. I'll be short and sweet because I know we talked about it a little bit and we got more questions to get into. So many great moments from Omaha, and I had so much fun writing that 5 defining moments. I hope you guys read it and enjoyed it because there were so many different moments in Omaha throughout their 13-day stretch and 6 games that you can point to. So my favorite moment overall was Hunter Ensley running the wall. I mean, self-explanatory, right? I mean, that was just incredible. There wasn't many moments in the season compared to last year. Like last year, you knew Vanderbilt, you had the Tears and the Dreiling solo home runs to tie it. You had Chase Burns coming out of the bullpen for really his first time and being who he was that year. You had Griffin Merritt's walk-off and his outfield assist. I mean, that was the game you pointed to last year and said, okay, that's when it all changed. Like, that was the moment. This year, they just went about their business and won so many games. And that's a hat tip to them. But my favorite moment of the season was Hunter Ensley running on the wall. One of my favorite storylines is Xander, and of course we can go on and on about it for sure. We'll go to Sam Smith 2233, back to business. While we were winning a national championship, Jay Johnson was big game hunting. Where do we stand in the portal? Have to replace a starting rotation and maybe 7 guys in the lineup. That's not to mention the arm barn. As far as the portal, yeah, I mean, I've checked in throughout the time in Omaha, and I mean, they're still doing their due diligence, but they were there to win a national championship. And, sure, there's some other teams that are out there going harder at the portal right now, but, they're not winning a national championship. But Tennessee's still very much in with Gavin Killen, the Louisville infielder that's considered by many to be the number 1 overall player in the portal. Tennessee's very much in with him. As we said from the beginning, this one's going to go a while. He can go anywhere he wants to. A lot of teams are involved. He was going to go and visit A&M. I would assume that's probably not happening now. Will he shift to Texas now with Schloss going to Texas? I don't know. We'll have to see. But he was scheduled to go see A&M after the World Series, and I'm sure that's off now. But Tennessee's very much in that one. Tommy Lepore, the right-hander from Wichita State. Tennessee likes where they are there. A couple teams involved, but those are the 2 main ones. There'll be more that pop up for sure, and ultimately once they get back, parade is over. We'll see if they can have anybody on campus this weekend because that's the downfall. Then they haven't been able to host anybody for 2 weeks because they've been in Omaha. Last thing here from Sam Smith with Texas hiring Schloss. Is Josh in play at A&M? If the Clemson dude goes to A&M, could Josh be in play in Clemson? Also, is Frank going to get another year? Yeah, we just got to see how all this plays out. I would assume that Frank Anderson's going to come back and play or come back and coach. I'll not say that's definite, but that's my assumption right now. But we'll see how it all plays out. You did just win a national championship, so we'll see if that changes some things. As far as Josh Elander, I think people would be silly not to at least interview him. top assistant to the top team in the country, arguably the best college baseball team ever. I mean, I've seen some of those tweets and everything the last couple of days. Nonetheless, he's in a good spot. He doesn't have to leave. We'll see what he wants to do, but certainly with this ripple effect that's going to be caused with Schloss leaving, I would anticipate Josh getting some calls, but he has an opportunity to be picky, and he can be selective. As far as he's not joining Schloss at Texas, okay, he's taken pretty much his whole staff there, even though that he speaks glowingly of Elander. Let's move on now. Let's go to a football question. RTray98, how good was Jerry Colquitt pre-injury? I can remember hearing that he was just about as good as Shuler. Would Peyton have played at all if Colquitt had stayed healthy? I have a feeling that he still would have played some because he's Peyton, but would he have played as much, Brent?
Well, the plan for Peyton and what Peyton's family wanted was for him to redshirt. The plan was for Peyton not to play in '94 at all. Jerry was a really good player, and the competition between Jerry and Heath was close. And in a lot of ways, Jerry felt like he beat Heath out on the practice field, thought he was a better player. Heath was a gamer. Jerry was a really good practice player. Jerry was a really good player. It's really unfortunate what happened with the torn ACL on play number 7 against UCLA, because he had waited his turn and he had a great fall camp. And Tennessee was very, very optimistic on where they were going to be offensively and what they were going to be offensively. Now, they went on as the year progressed, and Peyton became Peyton, and they became a really good offense down the stretch that season. But they had all those running backs. They had weapons. That was going to be a very explosive offense with Jerry Colquitt running the show. In any mop-up duty he had, Jerry had performed extremely well. He was ready. He knew that offense inside and out. So I don't know how much you would have seen Peyton, and I don't know how much of a drop-off you would have seen from it would have been different because Heath was such a runner and could do different things. But Jerry was really an effective passer and was really a good player.
We always talk about, the kind of like what if game Tubbs. But let's say Jerry Colquitt doesn't get hurt, Peyton doesn't play, and he redshirts. Then he becomes a starter in '95. I mean, more than likely he still leaves after '97, but you don't know that. I mean, he loved the college experience. What would have happened? Jerry Colquitt getting injured in '94, pushing Peyton into playing. Is there a trickle down effect that leads all the way to '98?
Well, you never know. I mean, you're exactly right. And I mean, if the portal had been a thing back then, I'm not sure T. Martin stays when Peyton announces he's coming back in '97. Because think about this. If you're T. Martin and you transfer after Peyton announces he's coming back for the '97 season, you have to set out '97 anyway. So the first time you're going to be able to play is '98. Well, you just stay where you're at Tennessee and then play in '98 with all your friends and teammates in an offense that you already know, right? And so if the portal were a thing, it would have been fascinating to see what would have happened. But, yeah, I mean, would T have come here with Peyton being, a year behind and having redshirt there? I mean, you never know when you play that what-if games. What I do know is that Tennessee would have won at UCLA with Jerry Colquitt. They would have beaten that UCLA team. I don't think they would have beaten Florida at home. They would have been competitive. They certainly would have had a chance to beat Alabama at home that year as well because Jerry knew that offense so much better than where the freshman was in Peyton. And again, Peyton's plan was a redshirt. That was already discussed, that he was going to redshirt in '94 because he was physically, they didn't think he was ready to play, and his family was not in a hurry for him to play, which is why the Mannings had no problem with arch setting, at Texas and learning and getting ready to go. But obviously Peyton was thrown into the fire, and then we know what happened after that.
Gaterdawg, now that Tennessee's won a World Series, he says World Series, national champion. It's okay, though. I called it a World Series like 4 times the other night. And Brent Venables got an extension. Rob Lewis, what should I be worried about as a Tennessee fan right now?
Man,
there's always something. So
I'm not going to say the biggest one. I mean, you don't want to talk about injuries. I don't know. I mean, I'm not even talking. I'm not even going down that road. Coaches leaving, anything like, I'm not mentioning names, not mentioning anybody's name. Just enjoy it. You shouldn't worry about anything. Have a good summer.
Again, Hubs and I've had this discussion. Lane Kiffin scarred this fan base hard after leaving after 1 year. And now they just literally wait on bad things to happen. I'm with Rob. Enjoy everything about going on.
It's scarred a certain age group in this fan base. I mean, there's some people that, give a lot of money and have traveled all over the world, been a lot of games. That kind of stuff that we're talking about, it doesn't even show up on their radar. It just doesn't show up on their radar at all. I mean, they don't even think about that kind of stuff.
Another question here from Gaterdawg. Eric, what was the experience like covering the World Series? Is it all the College World Series? I guess that makes sense. Sorry, I haven't slept a lot the last couple of days. Is it all work, or can you balance enjoying the moment and work? It was freaking awesome. I'm super blessed to being able to do that. It's going to be, it's one of the highlights of my career for sure. I tried to. I'm proud of the work that I did, and I'm thankful that Brent allowed me to go, and everybody that back home that helped out for sure, especially on the championship winning night. That was awesome. I tried to make sure that this week when I got home, I wouldn't look back and say I wish I would have done that, or I wish I would have did this, and so I tried to work really, really hard. And so there was a lot of work that was there even on those off days. But I did have some friends there, and I walked around the fan village and went to the shops and hung out at the team hotel bar a couple of times with some good people. So. No, there was some balance there, but it was a work trip, and I think that we represented Volquest, and obviously Tennessee represented pretty well for sure. Athrun's got a couple. With all the fun on commits, where do we go next on commit watch, AP?
Well, Deshaun Brame, it would be the next to do something. He's coming up on Saturday. Feel like Tennessee is still got a ton of traction there. It's Tennessee or Oregon. He's out of He's out of town. He's down at the Rivals thing in Jacksonville, and then he'll return back to Kansas late this week, and then is supposed to, as long as he's come to a decision, announce for somebody coming up on Saturday. So again, as of right now, I still feel like Tennessee is positioned well there, but a lot can happen between now and Saturday. So we'll see what happens. But Alec Ablin's done a nice job there. The city of Knoxville showed really, really well for he and his family. And it feels like Tennessee is positioned well there, as we said here on Thursday.
Does Utu project as a potential right tackle in the future? His build appears like he can handle it.
No, he's a guard. Could he play right tackle in a pinch? Yeah. There's several guys like that. Gage Ginther. Big Gage Ginther also may translate inside to guard eventually, right? That's kind of the natural progression there. So I think Tennessee looks at right now. They have 3 offensive linemen committed: Anthony Ogamoro and Douglas Utu, guards, and then Nick Moore could play guard, but more than likely will be a center at the next level.
Other recruits that Tennessee's still after, are there any parents the staff still needs to win over?
I think at this point Tennessee's kind of shot their shot with everybody, and there's Tennessee's in position with several players that could close this class strong. It's just a matter of the kids getting in the boat, and you only do what you can do. They have done as well as they could do with these OVs in June, but you got to close them out, and they got to figure out a way to close them out over the next between 1 and 5 or 6 weeks.
Man,
last one for Athrun. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm sorry to interrupt. Out of curiosity, at Hubbard, weigh in. If you haven't gotten a kid on campus at this point in time, I know you got some Arian Carters in every class, but by and large, AP, if you haven't gotten a kid on campus for an official visit by the end of June, are you really in it, or are you looking at plan Bs after that?
Well, the only ones that I think that you would think in those terms that you're talking about are the kids that have been adamant. I'm not doing anything till October. I'm not doing anything till November.
I'm taking an official visit to see.
Those are few numbers, right? Like as you pointed out, they're most kids are taking the OVs in June and then announcing in July or August because they want to get it over with before their season starts. But there are those few that don't, and so when you have it that way, you probably want to wait. Shooting your shot June 7th for a kid that isn't committing to October 28th, it's hard to hold any momentum if you get momentum June 7th. So I think, those are the more the unicorns. Most everybody else, as you said, taking the OVs in June and then announcing shortly thereafter.
Since all the DBs we're recruiting have been said that they can play multiple spots in the secondary, can you project what position they will actually play for the Vols? AP, right now it's 4, 3 corners, 1 safety, with Walton being the safety, right?
Yeah, but there's versatility there for a bunch of those guys. Trey Poteet has versatility. Could play some nickel. Could play some safety if needed to. Could play corner. Same thing with Dylan Lewis. Those 2 kids from the Atlanta area, have versatility in them, Hubs. And that's something that Tim Banks has always said he really likes when he's evaluating a defensive back.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're always looking at that. You never know what somebody's going to be in this day and age. I mean, all those kids want to play corner for the most part. You're going to go get the best athletes. Most of the time, that's going to be a corner. But some of those guys' size and speed standpoint, they project into being safeties long term. I mean, look at where Tennessee is at the safety spot now. Christian Harrison came in here as a corner, right? Not everybody's a true safety when they come in, but you're also not moving everybody from corner automatically to safety. It's harder to go back the other way. So you probably go get a bunch of athletic corners and then some safeties grow out of that is kind of the way that it's been. It's harder to do that in this day and age, though, with the transfer portal. It's hard to go recruit a guy at a different position and you're projecting to play him somewhere else because some of those guys don't, used to you didn't go recruit an inside guy on the offensive line. You just went and recruit tackles. And if they couldn't play tackle, you slid them inside. Well, you do that to somebody now, he may go in the transfer portal on you. Same thing if you take you take a linebacker and move him to the defensive line, right? I mean, those guys might not stay around. Think about all the guys through the years that they flip positions with. And it's harder to do that now because kids want to play the position that they played and they believe they can play. You have to be it's a different sales job, right? I mean, it's different than when you flip Fred Weary from defense to offense and Cozy Coleman, right? Or Spencer Riley. It's different now than it used to be. And that's just something you have to adjust to. So you are recruiting a little more position specific, but in the secondary, you're going to go stay as athletic as you can stay.
Very, very few players are like Jeremiah's hurt, Eric, that are openly going, I don't really care. Wherever you want to play me, I'm good. Right. I just want to play. Very few kids are like that because a lot of kids think, I am this, I am that. Like I was talking to Robert Peace the other day at camp, and his son JP was going through it, Philip's grandson, and I said, I think he's going to be a tight end. He goes, man, don't say that to him. He doesn't want to hear that. And he goes, I've tried to tell him, I got a good friend who didn't want to play tight end, wanted to play defensive line. He ended up being pretty good at tight end. Of course, he's talking about Jason Witten. So, kids just get hung up on a certain position for whatever reason.
Well, I mean, like going back to what Hubbard was talking about, AP, about T. Martin in 1997, if he wouldn't wait, imagine, Jason Witten in 2001, he, when Philip, moved him from, Jason wanted to play defensive end. I mean, he could, if that was today, he might have been, the best defensive end in Virginia Tech history, not named, Bruce Smith. I mean, seriously, I can totally see it happen, 100%.
Also, with Jeremiah's hurt, he just started playing football too. So, he honestly probably doesn't literally know because he just started playing football 2 years ago. We'll continue on with your questions. Plenty more here on the Volquest Mailbag podcast. But first, let's get a word from our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions.
Severe weather can strike at any time in East Tennessee, and Mother Nature can do severe damage to the first and most important line of defense that you and your family have against Mother Nature, and that is your roof. Whenever she strikes, make sure that you call the people that I call. Make sure you trust the people that I trust, and that's my friends at Exterior Home Solutions, because they're more than friends, they're truly family.
That phone number is 865-524-5888, or you can visit them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. Big thanks to our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions. All right, let's get back into the questions. We'll go to RunThroughtheT. What is it going to take to beat Georgia? Seems like Kirby's figured out the offense and has too much talent at the top classes every year, runs an NFL style of football on both sides. That seems to be truly what is standing in the way of where we want to be. How do we do it, and when do we expect to do it? Anybody.
Well, I mean, they're the best program in the country right now. That's the best job in the SEC, and has long been the best job in the SEC because of the talent pool that they have. The difference is their staff, their administration is committed to winning at an extremely high level. How do you beat them? Well, I mean, you line up and keep playing with them, and you got to get better in the line of scrimmage. Tennessee's got to get better and more physical at receiver. What's interesting, Rob, is they've moved the ball against Georgia. They just haven't finished in the red zone. But guess what? Few teams have. That's why Georgia hasn't lost. They've been the best red zone defensive team in college football for like the last 5 years. Just keep playing. I mean, I don't think that Tennessee's miles away by any stretch of the imagination, but you're also chasing the best program in the country right now.
I don't have a lot to add. I mean, look at the NFL draft. I mean, that's how you beat them.
Recruiting wise, what were they doing that we aren't? I didn't mean now after they have won 2 national championships to sell, but before their 2 natties, where top class has helped them reach that. What are they doing in recruiting, Austin?
Well, they live in a state that has more talent than it knows what to do with.
No.
And when you can pull in kids like that and you start winning, all of a sudden you start recruiting nationally, then you can really cherry pick your in-state kids, which means you're getting, I mean, if you look, they've missed out on several big-time guys in their state the last few years, and it doesn't affect them because they recruit at such a high clip nationally. And that's because of the work that they did when he first got there with a lot of in-state kids like Ojulari and players like that. So, they've done a nice job of recruiting nationally, recruiting regionally, like getting a kid like Nakobe Dean out of the state of Mississippi, and then getting the best players in their state. It's pretty simple. Like, he's taken that Nick Saban formula and done it, I think in a place that it's easier to attract kids to than Tuscaloosa. We'll see if he ends up having the same success Nick does. I know Tennessee fans would hope that's not the case because that means they'd have to endure another Nick Saban type run in a different place. But they could easily be the 3-time defending champs because they were the best team last year. They just picked the wrong week to lose, kind of like Tennessee did in baseball 2 years ago when they lost to Notre Dame. They're the best team, picked the wrong week to lose.
Well, and I think the other thing too is if you look back on it, and this is an indictment against the previous coaches there, they've always had talent.
Yep.
I mean, Georgia's never lacked for talent. Matthew Stafford, and we could run on and on with a bunch of players that have come through Georgia that were NFL players that didn't win big at Georgia. They've always been talented. The difference is they're better coached now. They have an identity. They have a culture. They have a killer instinct. No offense to Mark Richt. They're just, their edge about them is very different. But Kirby has recruited really well. I don't know that he's dramatically changed how they recruit because Georgia's never, in my opinion, lacked for talent. They just haven't been – they just weren't this type of team in terms of the style of play, culture, edge that they play with. They just didn't play with that with when Mark Richt was there. Just a different brand.
That's 100% true. And you guys have both mentioned it, but I mean, I just don't know that people really appreciate how much talent is in it. I mean, think about everybody that has won national championships in the past 20 years, and Florida State, Auburn, Clemson. It's not all about recruiting Georgia, but how many of those rosters are stocked with Georgia kids? I mean, Tennessee, 98. How many Georgia kids has Alabama had on their roster? I mean, that state is loaded, and Kirby has. Finally, out of all the coaches that have been there, he's harnessed it. I mean, nobody's ever going to get anybody, but he's done a great job about keeping headliners home.
We'll move on now to Lfvol. The recent assumptions were we are essentially out of the original priority for wide receiver targets Cunningham and Ffrench. We are cautiously optimistic for Smith. But prior assumptions were that Cunningham was staying in state and Bama has emerged similar to Wingo at Texas last year. Do we keep swinging for those two in case Smith falls through over the next month?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to contact him, but I just don't see any traction there. I mean, the kids took visits. There wasn't much traction coming out of the visits. Jamie Ffrench loves everywhere he goes. He smiles everywhere he goes. So he's going to appear he had a fantastic time, because I think he does genuinely have a fantastic time. But I don't think Tennessee is, when you're coming out of the Tennessee visit, Hubs, and you say, they're now back in my top 3. Like, you just shot your biggest shot on an official visit, and you've now climbed back into, I guess, the 3 hole. It just doesn't feel like there's anything.
And it's happened twice with Jamie Ffrench. Jamie Ffrench was at 865 Live. And then we talked to him 2 days later at the On3 Elite event, and they weren't 3rd, right? He had just come out of that visit. Maybe they were 3rd, maybe they were 4th right there. He comes back to Tennessee for an official visit 2 weeks later and comes out of that, and now they're back. They went from 4th to 3rd after he was on campus twice in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to go to Texas. I mean, I think that's what everybody believes, that he's going to go to Texas. And again, with Cunningham, it feels like Alabama's got all the traction there. It's closer to home. And I think it may be close enough to home, AP, that he can get out of the state of Mississippi. I don't think he's going to go from the state of Mississippi to Knoxville, Tennessee. I don't think that was ever realistically going to happen.
Well, we'll see on Ffrench. I mean, LSU's heavily in play there. I'm not counting out Ohio State. I mean, ultimately, it just doesn't feel like that there's any real traction here for either one, period. And again, people go, well, how's Alabama doing it? Because Alabama's still got the script A, and they've still got tradition. And when kids take those visits and they pull out all the rings that Nick won, the kids don't care if Nick ain't still there. Like, it's still Alabama. The name still carries weight. Like, the people that thought they were just going to fall off the face of the earth are wrong. Now, again, are they going to go 3 or 4 years without losing the conference game, or only lose 1 in 3 or 4 years? No, I think those days are gone. But they're still going to be really good.
Brandon _SV wants to know, what hotel chain did you gain super platinum status from, with Brent paying 3 weeks of hotels in Omaha? That would be IHG, the old Candlewood Suites. Really, really good place, about a mile down the road. It was technically in Iowa, but it was a mile down the road from the stadium. Had a Perkins next door. It's a really good spot there to spend about 13 days in Omaha, Nebraska.
So it wasn't the Hojos?
You
didn't say the Howard Johnsons?
No, I did not.
My first baseball road trip covering the SEC tournament, I stayed at the Shoney's Inn in Lexington, Kentucky.
I do want to say, for people that don't know,
it's out of business, by the way. Go ahead, AP.
But most people don't know, Eric's mother-in-law had open heart surgery a few days before the College World Series, and thankfully she came out and has been doing fabulous, right, Eric?
Yeah,
and that's great news. So Eric was tasked. I want people to understand. Eric, for the coverage, left his wife with his mother-in-law in the hospital and went out and crushed it out there. So a big kudos to Eric, and we're so happy she's doing well.
Yeah, Eric did a great job all season long with baseball. Makes me look like a good boss, AP. Thanks. I put him on. I told him he had to. Hey, leave your mother-in-law in the hospital.
That's correct.
I know.
You were on standby, Hubs, and part of us were anxiously. We wanted Eric's mother-in-law to do well. So at the end of the day, we didn't really want you there, but part of me would have liked to have just seen you there, right? I mean, just to see you fish out of water.
Yeah, that would have been me for sure.
She's doing great. I appreciate it, guys. Brent told me so many different times not to go, and I would not have left if she was not in a good spot. She was great. So, but Brent had a seat next to me all week long. We had 2 Volquest seats. I have his credential.
You should have taken a picture and put that out there.
I should have. All right. Let's go to just_Bass. What do you think about DB recruiting in this class? Every DB commit is rated pretty low. Staff evals need to be on point. That's a good point there, Austin. What do you say?
Well, I don't know how they're looking at it. I would tell you that, like, based off their track record at defensive back, you shouldn't swing high for a bunch of highly rated guys if you're going to elect to go to the portal, and bring in guys that are going to be ready-made starters. So I think you need some pieces that are going to develop and bring them along. I think if you bring in guys that are going to cost you a lot in NIL money that expect to play right away, if you're not going to play them, then it just sets a bad narrative in the room. So I kind of like what they've done in the secondary. I get fans want the best of the best, but if you're going to go, if your plan is one, then you can't go with the other in recruiting.
Well, yeah, if you're going to go get the best of the best out of the high school ranks, you got to put them on the field immediately. I mean, you got to play them, right? If your investment is there with those guys, you got to get them on the field and play them. Otherwise, you do exactly what you're talking about. Because what they've done is they've gone out and recruited some highly ranked guys, and then they've gone out and taken transfer guys over top of them and played the transfer guys. So we'll see what happens with their secondary development here over the next couple of seasons.
All right, AP. CMB Vol 1985 says, do we have a 51% chance or better or 49% chance or worse to land the following recruits?
Oh, here we go.
All right, first one, Shady Hayward.
51 or better.
David Sanders.
I'm going 51 or better.
Marion Dye.
I'm going to abstain there. I just don't.
Oh, you can't abstain, AP.
What's the other?
We're playing card sharks. You don't get to pass. Are you freezing there?
I'll go 49 or lower, but I do think it's 49. Like, I think Tennessee's there. I think they're right there. But if you said you got to pick, I'm going to go 49.
Hubbard, are you just not going to tell Eric what card sharks was?
He shouldn't know what card sharks.
I know, but I mean, we're not going to explain. There's a handful of people listening. There's more than a handful. Way more than a handful.
There's a bunch of people that didn't get the reference to card sharks. But I'm going to go higher and lower, right?
I have a Rolodex here.
Up or down?
Is that similar?
Let's keep it going, Eric. Stay on point.
Deshaun Brame.
I'm going above 51%.
Onas Kanabani, the DB.
I'm going to go over 51% because we all know what happened on the OV. But if the kid's not coming into August, that thing gets a little more dicey, in my opinion. Keep going.
Jaden Perlotti.
I don't know, man. That one just feels weird to me. How are you sending thumbs up?
Yeah.
This is fantastic. How's he figured out the technology? He can't even figure out his phone. You know what? I don't know. I just don't know.
I'm going to go freeze.
A week ago, I'm telling you above 51%. A week later, kid's been more distant. Went to the Georgia visit. I don't know. It still could be. I know Georgia's still expecting him not to be in the class, which to me is a good sign for the Vols.
Bryce Donovan Jenkins.
I'll go above 51%.
Then Christian Gass.
As we said here on Thursday morning, I would tell you above 51%. But I think it's really close. I wouldn't go more than 51%.
It sounds to me like Tennessee's signing 35. I don't know about the rest of you guys.
And the second-ranked class in the country.
Yeah, as of right now. I mean, Christian Gass is one that I think is in hard decision mode. I think it's Tennessee or Georgia. And I think he had a blast last weekend. The question is does everything kind of cool down and, the people just select around him to stay in state? Very well could. That's why I said I wouldn't go above 51%. But I do think Tennessee came off of last weekend with a ton of momentum with him.
See, AP, I don't think you know this in your heart, but you're not thinking about it. Like
I know. Every time you
say above 51%, 75% people are saying lock.
Yeah, correct.
Over.
AP just gave the 50-cent gift for 12 guys, Rob Lewis.
It's exactly why with Perlotti, I said, I would probably lean 49 just because the kid's been acting, much more kind of reserved and all that over the last week. Now, is that him just playing the game a little bit? Maybe. But there was so much momentum and so much talk from the national guys, regional guys, the local guys about Perlotti flipping. Then he still went and took the trip. Right. Even though with Georgia saying, hey, we don't expect him here.
He went.
That one I just fit deep down. I just don't feel a lot of conviction about.
Yeah, before I left for Omaha, I thought Perlotti was I thought that was close to being done. So,
but again, it's AP. It's what we talked about, I think, on the Tuesday podcast in recruiting. You have a run where you're getting nobody, and the fans are gnashing of the teeth, and then you have a stretch in there where you think you're going to get everybody, and then it comes back to the middle somewhere. And the question is going to be, what's the middle? Because I think Tennessee's had their run of early June. Can't recruit anybody. Auburn's getting this school's getting that. Everybody's getting can't recruit. Then you had a stretch where you had 2 big visit weekends, and Tennessee had momentum with 412 prospects who were in town. Now you're coming off those 2 visit highs, and it's generally somewhere in the middle. The question is, what does that middle look like? And that's going to be the fascinating part of the next 6 weeks.
This is a really good question for all 3 of you guys. Steve, 113-434-789, whatever. Convinced Charles House is going to be a dude just by his name alone. Who is on your all Tennessee name team?
That's in this recruiting class or
just all time, just name team. Good names.
Oh, I mean, I tell you what, a guy who was a good name that I thought was going to had a chance to be a good player that turned out to be good in another sport. Ovent St. Preux. That was one that was kind of like they found him, wrestler, and you thought there's a diamond in the rough there, and he was just as a football player didn't do much. Now he's obviously gone on and had success in the MMA world, but that's a name. He would go on my name team as a guy who sounded like he was going to be a dude, right, Rob?
It's a million years ago, but Vegas Davis, pretty good one.
Hubs loves Vegas Davis.
Moving on.
What? Hey.
Moving on. Sorry.
Rob, who is the Nigerian kid number 5 for basketball?
Emmanuel
Negative. There you go.
Had a heart issue. Great kid. Great kid. Really a great kid. I hate that happened. I think it would have been
Ulysses Alexander Hubs. Ulysses Alexander.
Nephew of
your boy Luther Campbell.
Uncle Luke.
You talk to him driving down the road, Uncle Luke, back in the day, right? There's been a bunch of names come through. Bunch of names. Some of them were good players, some of them turned out not to be good players.
And who's the running back that followed back up 75?
Oh, who was that kid? He ended up going to Florida State, right?
I wonder why.
He got the 10 and said left. Paul just kept driving. Where'd he go?
He lost Paul in the I-4 corridor. Paul's I-4 corridor.
Paul loved the DMV and the I-4 corridor, baby.
You guys will be thinking of more names as the afternoon goes on. We'll move on. This is from Mazer Rackman. Eric, I know your job is to be objective and
can't play risque. What? And then
and to not be a fan at the same time. So many sports reporters never get a chance to cover a championship team. What does this mean personally for you? Yeah, I mean, this is awesome. Like, I'll never forget this. Highlight of my career so far. It's just fun because this team was good, obviously. Has all those storylines we talked about earlier. Had to get some breaks go your way, like check swing, right? Just see incredible plays along the way. The team itself and the staff being so willing to help you out and help you do your job. I mean, yeah, it's awesome. I'm happy for those guys. I'm happy for that staff, and I'm happy for Tennessee to win a national championship because I can forever say that I was the beat reporter for a team that won a natty, and I'll have those experiences. I can talk about spending 13 days in Omaha in the 100-degree heat for the rest of my life. And so, I mean, it means a lot to me. I'm blessed to be able to do it, and it was a freaking blast. And hopefully I get to do that again. But that's never guaranteed. So I'll carry this with me forever for sure. Rheltney for life. I don't want to be greedy, but both Peyton Manning and Danny White said this is just the beginning of winning natties in all sports. With that said, who wins the next one?
I don't know.
Crickets.
I mean, how good is Chaz Lanier and this team that Rick Barnes has put together, Rob Lewis?
I mean, I would never predict that.
Nobody would. Nobody. I mean, you don't predict anything. I mean, but the point is, basketball's in the arena, in the scope of things. I mean, that was a Final Four game that they lost this past year in the Elite Eight. Those were two of the 4 best teams in the country playing in an Elite Eight game. They're there. Football is appearing to be moving in that direction, and a lot of people are projecting Tennessee to be a playoff team, but they haven't played in that space. They've got some big wins in the regular season, right? You win in Baton Rouge, you beat Alabama, They won a New Year's Six bowl, but they haven't been in the arena of winning one yet. Basketball has. Obviously, baseball's been there 3 of the last 4 years and did win it. That's why, just based on that, one would think basketball is closer. But again, there's so much that goes into it. I mean, you think about it. I mean, Tennessee had a chance to go to the Final Four, but Kyle Alexander gets hurt, right, Rob? And that messes everything up in a bracket that opened wide open for you. You just had – I mean, he had a chance, and Zakai Ziegler tears his ACL. You never know what happens. I mean, you have to have so many fortunate things go for you to win one of those. You can't project when somebody's going to win. My point is just basketball is in the tournament regularly, which gives you a chance. You got to say that. To me, you say basketball until football shows themselves in the playoffs.
Yeah, I know AP's not afraid to jump in the hot balloon with me. I'll say football just because of Nico right now. Just because the next 2 years, football's got the best chance because of Nico.
I'm gonna go Brennan Webb in the golf team. And if he doesn't win in the next 2 years, Danny White's got him.
What? How many more shirts can they give you? Just Brandon Webb. I mean, come on.
Brennan's not got me on Cypress Point yet, so I'm calling.
Oh, shots fired! Shots fired on the VQ podcast.
All right, we'll get to a couple more here. I know,
man, I love him. I tell you what, there'll be a real opportunity if he can land Blades Brown. If Blades Brown goes to college and doesn't try to go pro as an 18-year-old, which I personally think would stun him a little bit. I just think go play college for a couple of years and then do like Caleb did. I think it helps you. I think if he goes to college, I think Tennessee's got an excellent shot. If they land him, that should be around the time that this current group of sophomores with Bruce Murphy and Evan Woosley Reed and some of those guys are seniors. They would have a legit shot in golf.
All right, we got a couple more left, and I know we're getting on up towards 50 minutes here, but one more from Rheltney for life. Eric, chances of getting drafted for Inslee, Causey, and Combs. Yeah, I mean, I think Combs and Causey will get drafted, and I think they'll go. They can technically come back, but I think they've done enough over the course of the season. And Inslee as well, the way he's played the last, month and a half, 6 weeks of the season, we will see about that. I mean, for all three of them, but I would say kind of if I had to rank them here, Combs 1, Causey 2, Inslee 3, but I could certainly see Inslee drafted and go. The thing you got to remember too is you lose your leverage if you get drafted and come back, for your senior year. So it's kind of like that junior, that first year draft eligibility you go, right? It's not the case for everybody, but if you get an opportunity, you likely go at this point. And I think Inslee's, played himself into that conversation for sure. So I could see all three of these guys going, or at least the top two of Combs and Causey. Two more asking about, this is from Action 0212. Could Tears and Dreiling come back next year as draft eligible sophomores? Are they definitely gone? Yeah, those two are definitely gone. Kavaris Tears is gone. Dylan Dreiling, College World Series MVP, 100% gone. Those two guys are gone. And another story about Kavaris Tears, going from a guy who had no position to a guy who was all SEC defensive team this year. Tennessee was fortunate to have him. Let's go to Swagger 12. In your opinion, who is the leader for Dye as of today, AP?
It's a great question. I don't think there is a leader. I think it's Tennessee or Ohio State, unless he decides he wants to stay home at Purdue because Purdue is throwing their whole NIL collective at him. So I think it's Tennessee or Ohio State, if you ask me, from a pure football standpoint.
Is Jaden Woods a take at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think you would be. I don't think Tennessee's bringing guys in that, they're not going to take. Now, again, are there players that they would much rather have more? Probably. I would say that Tennessee would. There's a couple of guys that they'd wait to hear from before that. So I think it all depends on timing, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Vols' chances of landing Prelati and or Gas.
Yeah. You saying both or none, or
just it says and or, so at least one.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd be shocked if at least one of them doesn't end up here. But you're trying to flip Prelati from Georgia, and you're competing against Georgia for Christian Gas.
And the last one here from Swagger 12, you mentioned this earlier with the 51-49% chances of getting Bryce Donovan Jenkins. would you want to throw an exact percentage?
53.
53. All right. Brent Hubbs, let's end on this one, all right? That way, if something happens, it's easy to chop it off the recording at the end. Grover Levy, given the clause in Coach Kim Caldwell's contract regarding her salary if she wins a national championship, and given that Tennessee just won a baseball national championship, do you expect Tony Vitello to be the highest paid coach in the country next season? I think this is interesting, Brent, because, yes, there's a contract extension that's going to be announced at some point. You just won a national championship, and all that's gravy. But if Slosh gets the reported figure of at least 3 that's kind of been talked about right now from Texas, I don't know if TV would be the highest paid, but I think end of the day he's going to be over 2, top 3, 4, whatever that is, and his assistant pool is going to be much larger.
Well, if I'm his agent, the first thing I'm doing is I'm reminding Danny White of the contract that he wrote for Kim Caldwell.
Yeah,
and hey. That's a sport that doesn't make money, so don't come back to me and say, baseball doesn't make money, and you can't do that. You got a clause in there that says highest paid coach to win a national championship. Danny White or Tony Vitello did it in what I think is the hardest sport to do it in because of the grind that it is. That's absolutely the card I'm playing if I'm his agent, Jimmy Sexton. I'm saying you better make him the highest paid coach because you just won a national title. Now, the question is, where's Tony going to go if you don't do that? I mean, what's your leverage point? So I don't know that it'll be the highest paid coach, depending on what that contract looks like at Texas, because Texas A&M is not going to pay that kind of money. And I don't think Tony's going anywhere. But that's the card I'm playing if I'm Tony's agent.
In my opinion, what they had agreed upon prior to Omaha is ripped up, and they're going to have a better number, and it's going to be a more lucrative contract.
Yeah, I agree with that.
As it should.
I think
national championship.
Yes, I think they've absolutely. Again, it was done. Now it's like, okay, let's take care of the guy who just won a national title, because Danny wants to look good in this deal too. Right? He doesn't want to be sitting there going now before the highest paid. Come on, he wants the fans to feel good about the direction of the baseball program under Coach Vitello. He gave him a glowing endorsement yesterday, calling him the best coach in the country in front of the entire fan base at the celebration. So with that said, expect that to be kind of torn up. They'll redo it. It'll be even better for TV once it's announced.
I tried to get Danny to say something about it when I was interviewing him on the field. I said, "Yeah, man, you want to keep Tony Vitello around forever, right?" He didn't buy it. It's almost like he knew what I was doing. But we'll see what happens this week for sure. Tony's going to get paid a lot of money, and I think his assistant pool is going to be taken care of. And that Brent is something that he cares about for sure, because he knows as well as anybody, he did not just win a national championship without 7 years with the Elander and Frank Anderson, without the Chad Zerchers, without the Luke Bonfields, without Stovall's. All these guys, Woody. Q. It takes a village, and that village is stuck together primarily for the better part of 7 years, and now Tennessee went from worst to first, and it's national champions.
Yep, and listen, Tony Vitello will take less money to make sure his assistants are taken care of, but I think they're all going to get taken care of in a proper fashion, because Danny White likes to win, and Danny White wants to keep winning, and Tennessee's going to do everything they can to ensure that they're going to continue to win in baseball, particularly with the investment they're giving to Lindsey Nelson Stadium of $100 million. Renovate that thing. You don't want to lose any momentum in baseball. So, and listen, his agent, Jimmy Sexton's fully aware of all these things. They know they've got plenty of leverage there, and they're going to do he's going to do what he should do. He should leverage Tennessee for as much money as he can get, right? That's America. That's how it works.
Yep. And while you're at it, give Sean Barrows a big old raise too, because he was phenomenal this season, always is. So while you're throwing money around, throw some to Sean. Did my 2 cents. Appreciate you guys for being here and making the Volquest Mailbag podcast must-listen audio and video here to start your Thursday. Big thanks to our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions, 865-524-5888. You can visit them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com as well. A lot going on in recruiting right now. AP, another commitment announcement coming up for Deshaun Brame on Saturday, and plenty of recruiting notes from a busy month of June, as well as baseball recap from a national title season. We got football to get ready for throughout the month of July, position previews, opponent previews, all that and more. Great place happening right now over the General's Quarters and at Volquest.com.
That's right. We gotta keep working it behind the scenes. We'll see if Tennessee can get some of these guys across the finish line. They're in position, but being in position doesn't do you much outside of just put you in position. Got to get them across the finish line over the next 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks.
If you're watching on YouTube right now, we got a promo up on the screen, so you can use that promo and get exclusive content over at the General's Quarters and Volquest.com. Joining our family right now by looking at the promo on the screen right now if you are watching on YouTube. For Brent Hubbs, Rob Lewis, Austin Price, I am Eric Cain. As always, thank you guys so much for sending in your questions for us here on the Volquest Mailbag Podcast.